Welcome to your Healing Place podcast with Linda and Mindy. It is our desire to address common concerns of how abortion and faith intersect in order to validate the emotional pain and grief that abortion can bring and give hope that recovery is possible.
Well, you and I have never really talked about your story before. And so if you would just tell your name so people know who we're listening to. And I just want you to kind of start, like, maybe what are the things that led up? I don't know if you guys have done the road to abortion together, if you did that in Linda's group or if you're doing it with this group. But we all have a road that leads us to abortion. Sometimes that starts, way, way back in our youth, younger years. And sometimes it starts a little bit older, but just kind of what got you on that road. So.
Yeah. So my name is Jennifer Zimmer. I live in Wyoming. And I guess my road to abortion, I was a single mom to my son. He was, I don't know, a couple months old. And I remember I was having this conversation with my friend, even before I was found out I was pregnant with my second child, she was telling me about, that she had an abortion and where she had gone. Because in Wyoming, it wasn't legal at the time. And so that she had gone to Colorado, told me the name and everything. And I really didn't think much of it then. I was just kind of trying to talk to her about it. Well, then I found out I was pregnant again. My son was, and I really am not quite sure the timeline. I mean, I remember saying 8 months old. So I think right around there. I was struggling, and the first thing that popped into my mind was, that clinic that she had called, that Planned Parenthood in Colorado. And it was in my mind, and, I had told the father of the baby, and he had said, like with my son, I was already a single mom with his child. He was not around, and he had said that he wasn't going to be there. It wasn't his baby. He didn't want anything to do with it, which I knew to be true because that's how it was with my son. He wasn't really around.
And just to make sure, you knew it was his baby. You just knew he wouldn't be around.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So I had fear, so much fear. Like I was barely could make ends meet at the time. So the thing I could think of, and I remember my mom, she and the father of the baby did not get along. He was very abusive towards me. And so she had said, if you ever get back with him, I'm not going to be there. I won't be there for you. Obviously for my son, she's like, I'll be in his life, but not yours. And so, all this comes out and I'm pregnant again. And I'm like, my mom's the only person I had. And so I was like, okay. So I remember calling the clinic, and I think I just called I don't know, just to see what they had to say. And the gal on the phone was like, how far along are you? And I felt like I had just found out I was pregnant. So I was like, maybe 4 or 5 weeks. I don't know.
Okay.
She's like, well, honey, at this point it's just cells and tissue. There's nothing there. You can take a couple pills. You take one the first day, and the next day I think you take 2 pills, and that's it. It'll just cause you to have a menstrual cycle. And and I remember asking her, I said, so does this mean that I'm killing my baby? And she said, no, it's just cells and tissue. And so that was the lie that I held on to through all of it.
Can I ask you a question in that? So did you have an inkling and you knew that it was a baby, or were you just trying to help yourself make a decision that went against what you knew to be true? What was going on there, I guess?
So as I reflect back, I feel like when I asked her if I was killing my baby, I think I had an inkling there, but I chose to believe the lie that it was cells and tissue. I think in order for me to actually go through with it, that's what I had to believe.
Okay.
Even having an infant, even have been through it.
Right.
It was what the truth that I thought I needed to hear, that it was okay and justified in that action at that point.
Wow. Yeah, we have a gal in a group right now, and her comment was, I had to put aside, how did she put that? I can't remember exactly her words, but it was something to the effect of, I had to put aside my motherly instincts and forget that I loved my baby so that I could do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now she's like, and I would put myself now, if I were in my right mind, back in that same situation, I would give my life for my child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went and what was your experience?
Um, I don't have a lot of memory of the procedure. I don't remember really. I remember walking in, and I remember the gal on the phone said, there's going to be people here with signs or whatever.
Mm.
Just walk past them. Don't even look at them. Just walk right past them. And so my sister drove me to Colorado. There were people with signs outside, and I just walked right past them. I didn't even look at them, just like I was instructed to do. I don't remember checking in. I remember going to an exam room. The doctor and the nurse were in there, and I remember they did an ultrasound, and I remember the nurse asking if I wanted to see the ultrasound, and I said no, which in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have, because I feel like had I looked at it, I might have realized, but I said no. And she said, do you want to know if it's 1 or 2? And I said, sure. And she said, well, it's 1. And I said, and then I remember, and I never knew how far along I was. They never said that I can remember. I do remember the nurse saying, oh, it might almost be too far. But I think we could still do the pills. And then, so I still don't know. But I remember that right after that, they put us in a room, and I was in a room at a table with probably 10 other women. And we had to tell why and talk about why we were choosing an abortion.
Interesting.
With each other. And after that is when the nurse came in, or the doctor, I don't know who. And they gave us the first round.
What was that like? I'm sorry. I've never heard of that. So what was that like? Because I never heard of them letting you talk to each other. And so were you guys like encouraging each other? Was it solemn? Was it happy? What was the?
I don't remember the faces or a lot of the stories. I just remember saying why I was doing it. I don't know. It was kind of like an out of body type, just in this room, with these women. Yeah. And after all, and maybe that was, I don't know, them having to check a box. I don't know. But after that is when they came in, with the first round. They gave you that first round and had you take it there, and then sent you home with the other 2 and said, take this in 24 hours. You'll experience some light cramping. If you have too much bleeding, contact your OBGYN. But that was it. They took you home.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so let me just ask you this. How did you feel during, what was going on with you after you got home? Because it wasn't just at the abortion center, like for surgicals, it's just at the abortion center, then you go home. It's all done. You're going home to finish this. So tell me what was going on with you then.
Honestly, I don't have a lot of memory about the ride home. I remember before I took the pills, I had a lot of pain in my back. And then that kind of had started to go away. I don't really remember the ride home. I think it was quiet. I think, but I don't remember.
Did you shut down?
Probably numb, went home.
Yeah.
But at this point, I still thought, I was still holding on to that it was cells and tissue, and that I wasn't doing anything wrong, that I wasn't killing my baby, that, I was just doing what I was told.
How did it affect you afterwards?
Afterwards, I think I just shoved it down. I honestly didn't talk about it much. I started drinking. I kind of drank before, go out on the weekends and here and there, but I started drinking probably more regularly, multiple times a week. And then it just progressed. I drank up until this year's I'm sober 5 years this year. But at the
Congratulations.
Thank you. At the height of my addiction, I was probably drinking a box of wine every 2 days.
Wow.
Quite a bit. And that's where I feel like the Lord started with me. Because I grew up in the church, but it felt like when we'd have to go to church, mom's making us go to church. We'd go Sunday nights, we'd go Sunday, Wednesday night. As soon as I turned 18, I stopped going to church. I felt like it was something I had to do. And so through all of this, I didn't even consider God, honestly. I think at the point when I asked if I was killing my baby, maybe a little bit, but not really. So I was deep in my addiction, and I felt like I was getting embarrassed by it. I was embarrassed having to go to the liquor store to buy more. I was hiding how much I was drinking from my husband. I'd go and buy a box of wine on my credit card so that he couldn't see it on the bank account, and then I'd switch him out so he wouldn't know. And that's where the Lord, and I really feel like the Lord speaks to you how you'll receive him. So, I would be flipping through reels on my Instagram, and it would be these women coming up on how they became sober and what it was like. And so I'm like, okay, well, I had tried before to quit drinking. But I was like, well, let's just try it. And so that was tough. That was hard. But I really feel like the Lord put on my heart that it was time.
And so what were you drinking to mask? What were you covering?
I think to numb. I think just to numb, to not have to deal with any of my past. Just to numb it. So it took weeks, and then I was like, oh, I haven't drank in a few weeks. I might be able to have a drink. It might be okay, And I was on Instagram again, which, and I'm rolling through, and here comes this video of this gal that said, she had been sober, and she's like, I think if you're thinking about having a drink, we know where that's going to lead. Where that's going to lead you. How about we just see what happens if we don't drink today? I was like, wow, okay, that's the Lord, right? Let's just not drink today and just see how we are.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I haven't, drank, and it took a couple years being sober. And I really feel like the Lord needed to get that handled first before the abortion came up.
Well, you couldn't feel anything.
I couldn't feel anything. And I think had it been brought up while I was drinking or right after I quit, I would have went right back to drinking.
Right.
He knew that.
Yeah.
So it'd been a couple years. I started going back to church.
Okay. So in that 2 years, your emotions started to click on, or your sensitivity started to become more heightened, or what was happening in those 2 years, you think, that maybe it was now time, or you were trying to, struggling with the addiction, and finally you just felt like it was done, or what was it?
Yeah. I just felt like it was time to quit. I felt like it was time to get back into the church. I really just felt like, so that's where I was trying to focus my attention. I think my family, I always said that I wanted to give my children a childhood they didn't have to recover from,
That's a good one.
But, I'm sure with my son, the drinking, he might have to a little bit from that. My daughter was young enough that hopefully I didn't, I think she was probably 3 or 4, 3 when I quit drinking. So I just really thought it was time to get back to church, get my kids back in church, my husband back to church. So that's what the Lord was working on me then.
And then, so that wasn't the abortion, that was just getting you back in church. So there's like these increments in your life. So what was the turning point that you said, I need to start dealing with this abortion and healing?
So I was sitting in church one day, and I remember my mom was sitting behind me, and the pastor was talking about sin. And I mean, he was listing every sin that you can think of. And at the very end, he says, and I want you to know that I believe abortion is murder. And I think I went, kind of got my attention because up until this point, I thought that I was, wasn't killing my baby.
Okay.
And so I remember, I think I must have made a movement or a reaction of some sort because my mom came up behind me and she said, all sin is sin at the cross. There's no hierarchy of sin, and it's sin. And so, my mom still didn't know at this point. I think she just saw my body language when I responded to that.
Okay.
So anyway, that was where the Lord brought it out. That's when it started for me.
So how long ago was that?
That was probably 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago.
Okay. And I know you didn't come to us first. So what was those steps? What was that process of you getting to the first abortion recovery group?
Yeah. Well, after the pastor had said that, I started getting, I think that guilt started. And I was talking to a gal at work and who's a Christian. And I was telling her what the pastor had said. And then I was like, but it's all sin and God forgives all sin, what my mom had said.
Yeah.
And she says, well, I believe that to be true, but I think that, he forgives sin, but I think there's two sins he doesn't forgive. And I was like, oh, and she's like, I don't think he forgives murder. And I just stopped her. And I was like, okay, well, and I walked away. So that created this deep spiral for me, like this dark hole, because I was like, well, what do you mean he doesn't, what he doesn't forgive murder? She said that there was a couple of scriptures in the Bible she had read. And so I went into this like pit. And then about a week later, I approached her and I said, what you told me really scares me. And she said, well, why? And so I had told her, well,
Oh, wow.
I had this abortion. And you could just see, she was like, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. She's like, she said that she kind of caught on when I, stopped her. She said, I had done some, I've been in the scripture and I know that God forgives it. I don't know where my heart was and I'm sorry that I did that to you. And I think then, though, it put such a stronghold in my mind, Mindy, that I couldn't get past that. I couldn't. I was like, well, I'm never going to be forgiven of it. And I got so sick. I lost 7 pounds in a week. I couldn't eat. I couldn't. I was so sick. I wasn't interacting with my kids, my husband. And so it made my husband scared. And he actually started looking at podcasts for post-abortive women. And he got me to a podcast by Victoria on her Reassemble. And so in the end of the podcast that she was talking, I gave her information to find her. So I contacted her and I did one of her retreats over a weekend. April, a couple of years ago. I can't remember, 2 years ago maybe. And so that was my first forgiven and set free. And it was good, but I feel like where I was at was I didn't really get through the whole study. Like it was like, okay, God's forgiveness, because that's what I needed to know at that point. So when I finished the weekend and I finished the study, I still didn't feel whole. I didn't feel healed. I didn't feel great. So I reached out to a local pregnancy center here. And I asked, because on their website it says that they do post-abortive healing.
Okay.
And so I called them and they said, well, we're in the process of moving. We actually aren't offering anything right now, but I have a couple of websites that you can go to.
Okay.
And an Even Place was one of them. She had said, I don't know much about this an even place, but I saw them at this convention. I think they're doing great work. So I reached out, and then I found out it was forgiven and set free again. And I was almost embarrassed. I'm like, I just did this, but that was the Lord there too. He's like, we need to go back and visit a couple areas in your life here. A couple things that you have to. I wasn't going through the process. That first time, I think the only thing I wanted to hear was God's forgiveness for me.
Well, and you called me, you just couldn't stop crying. You couldn't talk to me without breaking down into tears. And I just remember thinking, wow, and we talked about doing an intensive over virtual weekend. You're like, no, I just think I need to sit in the Word. And that was the difference for you, I think, was just slowing it down just a little bit for you and sitting in it. And some people need to go slower, a lot slower, even than that. So
absolutely. I needed to feel and recognize the emotions and everything that I was feeling. And to know that I wasn't alone in it too. And so, an even place has been great for that. You guys have really come alongside me and just helped me through it.
Oh, good. And have you done any of our other services, just out of curiosity?
I did a drop-in just on with Ginger. But that was just before any I think I had just finished going through with Linda. I did just a drop in 1 week, but that was it.
Okay. Well, and then now you are co-leading Forgiven and Set Free with Linda. She was your leader, and now you're co-leading with her. So tell us just a little bit. I want you to tell a little bit more about that, and just, gosh, I don't know, your perspective this side of it. Are you getting more healing? Are you seeing things differently in the Word? What's happening there?
Yeah, I do think I have a different perspective on it now. I can see where the women are in their journey, and I feel like I can relate. So it makes me a little more empathetic with the women, to really, really feel how they're feeling. And it's funny, I've done it twice, but even still going through with Linda, it's like more lights are clicking on. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. That makes total sense.
It's affirming it more and going deeper into your heart.
Yeah.
And just a few minutes ago, before we got started, we talked about I can't remember the exact question I asked you now, but it was something about what are you seeing in the ladies? And anyway, you got to the point where you talked about how what they're going to what they're going to end up as. They're going to be okay. And so I just want you to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I know, because I know where they're at in their stage right now. I know where they're at in their process with their grief and their emotions, but I know what's to come. And so I have so much hope for these ladies, because I know that the Lord is going to work in their heart. And I know that He's going to walk them through this. And He does it gently, and He guides you. And sometimes it's tough, but He will get you through it. And I just know where they're going to end up. And so I'm so happy to watch this process in them. You can already kind of see it going. Even going into week 4, you're seeing these women already.
Yeah, it's hard. But so what would you say to somebody who's listening to this, who is maybe apprehensive to start a study?
Yeah. Well, fear is the enemy uses the fear. And so he's going to use anything he can to get you from starting the study. He's going to trip you up any way he can. But if you can start it and you go through it, it's life-changing. It really is. And the Lord heals you. He really does. So just take that first step. And I know it's hard. I know. I went to Tennessee from Wyoming to take that first step, but the Lord really walks you through it. And so just if you can get through that first step and calling and getting going, it's life-changing.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer, for spending some time with us today.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was inspired by the many conversations had through the years with women struggling from the emotional pain associated with abortion. Thank you for allowing us into your healing journey. Subscribe on major platforms where podcasts can be heard. Learn more about virtual abortion recovery healing at www.anevenplace.com. The link is in the show notes.